It ends level at the Bet365 Stadium. Stoke City 1, Norwich City 1. And in isolation, without the wider context, I think it's a good point for Norwich City. Any team that goes to Stoke or anywhere really in the Championship away from home and gets a point is going to be relatively happy regardless of performance. But for Norwich, it was probably more than the result today. It was about a response from last weekend's pretty shambolic display against Wrexham at home, and me and Ben kind of dissected all of that on the most recent podcast, which if you haven't already watched it, of course, you can go and watch that. Yes, their unbeaten away record remains intact. Yes, they haven't won a game in September, and a lot of the problems that I guess we've seen in recent weeks and maybe the whole of Liam Manning's tenure so far remain prevalent. I guess after today's game, I don't think anybody's watched this afternoon's game and probably felt that Norwich had made massive strides forward. All the performance was perfect and really rounded, and maybe the result that they got reflected the performance. They for large parts of that game were under the cosh and kind of had to do back to the wall again, which they done well, and there was a more willing fight today. The determination was there, the desire, a lot of the characteristics that they just didn't display last weekend at all against Wrexham. And yes, you can question the quality at different points again, and maybe some of the passing or movements and certainly the attacking problems are still there, and I'll dissect those very shortly. But yeah, certainly an improved performance from last weekend. Liam Manning went into the game and made some changes. I think he had to. If you kind of look at some of the performances from some of the individuals within this group in recent weeks, they probably didn't merit starts today, and maybe some of those who have been coming off the bench in recent games probably have merited an opportunity to start a game, and we saw that today. Jovon Makama with his first Norwich City start after, I thought Coventry was excellent when he came on, really made it difficult for the Coventry defenders. Obviously, he was in the right place last weekend to get off the mark in a Norwich City shirt with a goal. Liam Gibbs, I think, has had a pretty good start to the season off the bench when he's had opportunities. He's sort of been one of the players who's been willing to try and drive them forward, add a little bit of energy, a little bit of bite in that midfield, which they've kind of lacked at different points. And I thought he had a positive display today in a player who has been so unlucky with injuries in recent seasons. Of course, had that breakthrough under Dean Smith and won the Young Player of the Season. I think there was a lot of potential there and a lot of hope for what he could go on to be. And, injuries have kind of blighted that. So really great to see him get an opportunity today and take it. Pelle Matson with a start, and thought he was one of the better players, if not the best player, from a Norwich City perspective today as well. Of course, some of those individuals like Kovacevic having to be at the top of their game today for a lot of the reasons that they've had to sort of battle with in recent games. They started today's game on the back foot. Stoke under Mark Robins have had a positive start to the season, 4 wins, 2 defeats. Yeah, Mark Robbins is a Championship manager as well. He's proved it at Coventry. He knows how to get results in this league, how to set teams up, and they're difficult to break down. And I think Norwich found that, certainly from an attacking point of view today. And Stoke maybe had some of that confidence because of the results that they've had in recent times. I know they lost last weekend against QPR at Loftus Road, and they kind of needed a response today as well. But they're sort of flying high in the top 6 at the moment and sort of making themselves a good outfit at this level. So they came out of the traps early. Kovacevic had to make a good stop from Junho Bay pretty early on. Medic clearing it off the line, and Norwich were kind of, certainly from the corner perspective, were under the cosh. I think there was a few quite early on. I think it was 12 corners to 1 in the end. And if you look at the shot count as well, I think Stoke had 23 shots. Norwich just a 6 they mustered over the course of the 90. And the opportunities, certainly in the first half, I mean, Sargent had a bit of a flash shot that Johansson saved fairly comfortably down low. Then kind of almost against the run of play, which has been a theme, I guess, of Norwich away from home so far this season. They managed to get the breakthrough. Excellent ball across from Jack Stacey, Jovon Makama there to tap it home and give Norwich City the lead. They managed to ride that out till half-time, and I think, that was an interesting point, really, because, last weekend, Will Liam Manning and this group of players almost learnt their lesson. That 13-minute crazy spell they had at Carrow Road last weekend where the heads dropped and they just lost the game, really, in that period of time. I know they were, they didn't deserve anything over the 90. They were, apart from Kovacevic really saving them, it could have been a cricket score, really. So today was similar, but maybe Stoke didn't really muster too much clear-cut opportunity, as say Kovacevic not having to kind of pull out the big saves he's had to do in recent games. However, 5 minutes into the second half, Stoke managed to get a breakaway, ball comes across, Kovakovic makes a save from Manhofer initially, parries it out, and the ball falls at the feet of Sorba Thomas, who sort of swivels and buries it in the far corner to get Stoke deservedly level. And at that point, it's kind of like, right, how did Norwich respond from here? And to be fair to them, they were resilient. They had to battle a lot of Stoke pressure, certainly in that sort of last 40 minutes of the game, and had opportunities as well. I mean, Josh Sargent had one which he sort of had a bit of snapshot from sort of the wider angle, and that was well saved. Liam Gibbs had one that was sort of stopped from a sort of audacious kind of angle as well, which, Janssen had to smartly save. However, that attacking problems I guess they've had in recent weeks remain there. Sargent on the whole was pretty isolated again today. Svartau, some positive moments, but also a little bit in and out of the game. Makama obviously having to operate in a position that he's not really featured in before. Certainly at Lincoln, he was kind of more of a central number 9. He's having to kind of float a little bit more across the attacking sort of front line in this Norwich City system at the moment, because obviously Josh Sargent is the man who, as we'd all expect, and with his quality, leading the line up front. And he was a little bit in and out of the game, but still had a relatively positive afternoon. Pelle Matson, I thought, was probably the star man in the midfield. Another excellent display from him in terms of that technical quality. You look at the goal and his contribution to that, and how key he was in sort of starting that attack. There's something there that I quite like, and I feel that Norwich City can work with. However, Liam Manning's got to find a solution really to eliminate the problems that Norwich having at the moment, because they're sitting deep at inviting pressure, and they don't really have that attacking sort of prowess, I guess, to cut teams open, and almost on the transition, they're not quick enough to cause teams or opposition teams problems, and therefore, if they can see the goal, almost the best they're going to get is a point, because they don't really score enough goals at the other end at the moment, which, when you've got the best striker in the Championship on the pitch, you'd probably be feeling they need to be a lot better at that, particularly given last season, Hoftorp had his deserved critics for some of the defensive side of the game. However, from an attacking point of view, Norwich were a great team to watch. They created lots of opportunities and had good attacking players with that attacking quality to finish the opportunities and sort of provide, I guess, quite an entertaining brand of football that most Norwich fans would align to. But it's now the start of a big week, really. It's a point on the road at Stoke. They need to almost back that up on Wednesday night now with a win, and a needed win, I think, at home, just to kind of show the home faithful a positive performance and a positive result, because they've not seen that so far this season before the big one next Sunday, which, I fear a little bit for that game. If Norwich can come away with their having sort of battled and get a point, then I think we'd all be very happy with that, irrespective of the performance. So, it's now the start of a big week. We're going to talk a lot more about this on the podcast and maybe the performance. There's not really a huge amount to dissect from this game, because, again, it's kind of much the same talking points from all the previous games away from home and at home so far this season. Those same problems just keep reoccurring, and the injuries just seem to keep piling up. And Papa Diallo, of course, now out for a number of months, which is a huge blow for a player who, yes, he's only shown flashes so far, but clearly Norwich are having problems, with some of those injuries in the attacking areas, so you don't really want to be limiting your options. So that's a huge blow, and it's another conundrum for Liam Manning to try and figure out, and it's early days. He's got to try and find a solution to that. So we'll talk all about this on the podcast this week. Thanks for all your support on the videos on here. Of course, leave down in the comment section below your thoughts on today's performance, the result. Are you happy with it in isolation, or sort of are you maybe concerned, I guess, with the wider picture surrounding Norwich City at the moment? And we'll see you in the next one of these videos.